Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Ivory, and you are tuned in to the Embracing Neurodiversity podcast, where I share my personal journey of embracing and enhancing the experience of my amazing son who is on the spectrum. Through this journey, I've discovered a lot about myself and continue to grow every day. My goal is to provide you with some useful insights and stories that will inspire you in your own parenting journey. Thank you for tuning in. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Embracing Neurodiversity podcast. My name is Ivory, and I am so grateful that you decided to return. I wanted to focus today's podcast on a question that I get often, whether it's in this work that I do with consulting and coaching parents around supporting their neurodiverse child and working with organizations around understanding the concept of neurodiversity. The constant question that I get is, how was I able to embrace my son and his autism diagnosis so easily? And I think about that a lot because I think often about the perception that I'm giving to people around what it means to be an autism mom. And keep in mind that the experience for every parent who is raising a neurodiverse child is different. But for me, I was able to embrace my son and exactly who he is early on, even before the diagnosis, when he had a speech delay and he was socially just not engaging with other kids his age. I was like, okay, something is different here. And I obviously got on the journey of discovering what that was, but I had grief about it, still have moments of grief about it, but I think overall I am content and would not change anything about my son. And I wanted to step back and provide you with some reasons why I'm relatively comfortable with my lifestyle as it is as a autism mom raising a son who is on the spectrum, and why I've been able to embrace it fully and then teach other people, coach other people on how to embrace it. And stepping back and self-reflecting, I thought about it, and it's actually three top reasons. The number one reason is because I was always the underdog growing up. I grew up in an environment in which we had lack of resources, lack of opportunities, lack of access opportunities. I went through an educational system as a young girl that was less than satisfactory. And so I always had a negative start in life, if you will. Like when you think about the analogy of track, I used to run track when I was in high school, and everyone is starting out evenly, and then however fast you run, the winner is the one who runs the fastest. That wasn't my experience. I started out way back from others, and I had to run a little bit harder, be a little bit more smarter, and navigate systems more savvy in order to have access to opportunity. And so it was embedded in me early on that, first of all, nothing in life is perfect, and everything that you're not makes you everything that you can be if you flip it and use it as a strength. That's another conversation for another day, but that is one of the reasons why I was able to embrace my son, is that I was always an underdog, and so I knew that this diagnosis is not going to be his defining moment. It actually is simply an informative piece of paper that is going to allow us to figure out how we're going to thrive in the world, not despite it, not because of it, but it just is. Being an underdog gave me a clear understanding that hard moments, difficulties that you're dealing with, whether it is a diagnosis or whether it's internal circumstances, internal factors that you're dealing with as a learner, as when it comes to your mental health, physical health, emotional health, or external factors as it relates to the upbringing that you had. When you're an underdog, you are trained early on to take what is given and flip it and make the best of it, right? And so that was always ingrained in me, and I was able to implement that with my son. The number two reason was that I've always been, as I've mentioned in other podcasts, someone who's always been curious and interested in information. I was always a reader as a young girl and just always consumed a lot of information. And I've always particularly been interested in history and racism in not only America but globally. And the more that I learned and taught myself about it, and then the more I became educated about it in my career, and this idea of equity and how we all are socialized and programmed to think a certain way, and those of us who come from marginalized communities, whether it is because of your race or your gender or the way in which you learn and take in information, for those of us who come from those marginalized spaces, we have been socialized and programmed even more to think less of ourselves. Not completely, and this is a general statement, I understand, but like for the most part, and that's another deep dive. But because I understood that we all are living under social constructs, we all are programmed in one way or the other to view life in a particular way, view society in a particular way, whether that is through TV or music or conversations that we have with our family and community and what we hear them saying from an early age. Those things have an impact on how we see the world and how we see ourselves and how we see other people. And because I was clear about that we all have our biases and our some subconscious beliefs about things, I began to do the work to unpack some of my beliefs. And that's an ongoing journey. That's not something that happened overnight with me, where I was able to read a few books and then I'm like, I'm no longer socialized to think a certain way. No, if it takes a lifetime to be socialized to think a certain way and to be programmed to see the world a certain way and to be socialized to define what is normal and what's not normal, we all have been given these like labels of what that looks like, which I'm gonna deep dive into that also. But I had to really do the work to unpack those things. What do I believe about myself? What do I believe about myself in the world? And what do I believe about the world as it relates to me? And I was able to start doing that work of thinking critically about society and myself before I became a mother. So then when I learned that I was pregnant, I was very clear that I wanted to make sure that no matter what type of child I had, that I was going to support them in loving themselves unconditionally, and I was going to be less concerned about how the world viewed them and more concerned about how they viewed themselves. Because one thing I've learned in all of my work and research around personal development is that it means nothing of what others think about you. Really, what matters at the end of the day is what you think about yourself. And what happens is that the world and the communities around us that we place ourselves in have different ways in which they program us through their own statements and beliefs, and we all want to be loved and accepted by people that we care about, and sometimes people that we don't care about. Everybody wants to have some level of acceptance and acknowledgement, but because we want that, we tend to conform and do things in a way that is acceptable to others, but oftentimes that is in contradiction to who we are, and it impacts us living at our highest capacity, and it's in conflict with us truly loving ourselves. It's important for us not to be like on this pendulum where we're moving back and forth according to what others are expecting of us or want from us in order to get acceptance, but instead to step back and think about how you want to be in the world, and your people will find you. So that was number two. Like, I was really clear that I want to be on the journey of making sure that my child is confident and loves themselves. And yes, they're going to be human. And so as you grow and evolve in this society, you're going to get a lot of messages, whether it is intentional or not intentional. You're going to get a lot of messages that are going to make you believe or feel or question who you are and your value, especially, again, if you come from a marginalized community, if you are a person of color, particularly a black person, if you are a black male, which my son is, and then you add on having a neurodivergent diagnosis. Like, these things in particularly American society, but globally, are factors that, if you allow it, will make you believe that you don't have value in the world, and then you begin to act out in that way in which you don't operate at your highest capacity, because we get these messages from people, from media, from a plethora of ways, from people that we love that devalue us, okay? And so I was real clear that I want to not say anything to him that is going to begin to program him to make him feel like he can't be great in the world. This is when I was pregnant. And I also was clear that parents, we do it from a place of fear that our children will be harmed, especially if you are a black parent. And so you, early on in your child's development, you tell them, no, stop, don't do that, get off of there, don't run up there, get away from that person. Like, you tell them a lot of things, believing it's protecting them, but it oftentimes places a level of fear and resistance in them to not explore the world and to not move in ways in confidence and navigate the world. If you think about it, children, no matter who they are, come into this world, if left to their own devices, simply exploring and figuring it out, and they have no concept of not being good enough. But slowly but surely there will be buckets of messages that will make them feel that way, even subtly, like with things that our children watch. If your child is consuming information and they don't see a representation of themselves, subconsciously they're going to believe that the images that they're seeing are more valuable than them. So it's levels to this, right? So number two, I was just real clear, no matter what, that my son was going to believe that he was great in the world, and I wasn't going to get in the way of that, and I was going to do my best not to allow anyone else to get in the way of that. And when difficult moments happen, and when people to try to make you feel that way, because that's going to happen, that's inevitable, I want to make sure that I'm instilling in him enough messages to counteract that. So that's number two. Number three for me is that I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because I'm a Scorpio. I don't know if it is because I got a little bit of a chip on my shoulder from being the underdog, but I don't go down without a fight in anything that I do. I don't take difficult moments and just accept them as is. Now, because I am wise enough, I don't fight every battle, and I'm really clear to accept the things I cannot change, but I'm also super clear that I'm going to change the things that I can. I'm actually trying to teach myself to stop fighting and allow my own energy of attracting to work in my favor, if that makes sense. But essentially, I just have the spirit of someone who is not going to take defeat and allow it to persist. I'm going to keep going and keep fighting until I can't anymore. And I've done that for me, and most certainly I'm going to do that for my son. Essentially, those were the top three reasons to summarize, because I want to be really clear about this for parents particularly, but for those who are not parents of neurodiverse children, but you're thinking a lot about what the experience of a neurodiverse person is in the world and those who love them. The top three reasons that I've been able to navigate this for the most part, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, navigate this for the most part from a place of power, is because number one, As an underdog, I was real clear early on that like the deficits don't define you. They can make you better if you fight and work through them. That's number one. That was my experience. Someone like me who grew up the way that I did was not expected to survive that. So not only did I survive it, but I thrived through it. And so if I can do it, I know that my son can, because he has more opportunities than I did. Number two, I was steeped in the historical and racial context of this society and what that means, and how we as individuals are socialized to view ourselves and others through a lens of deficits, particularly when you're marginalized. And so because I knew that, I was super passionate about ensuring that my son would not take on or internalize the programming that we receive early on about feeling like we're not worthy of being great. So I took on that mission, and then when I gave birth and he grew and he had autism, I honestly feel like it was like, all right, you said this is what you're going to do. You better do it. You don't stop being committed to ensuring that your child lives at their highest capacity because something difficult has occurred. And then lastly, because I have a passion and a fight in me that I just can never simmer on. It doesn't die down. In fact, it grows the more that people underestimate me or underestimate my child. But keep in mind, like, I do this from a place of grace and patience. So it is both around like the idea of controlling the things that you can and the things that you cannot, allowing it to work out in the way that it's supposed to, believing that things always work out in the way that they're supposed to, right? So those are my 3 reasons that I've been able to embrace my son's diagnosis for the most part. So when I say for the most part, I want to be really clear about this because I'm a neurodiversity advocate, because I'm an autism mom, because I try to speak positively about what it means to be a parent raising a child on the spectrum. There is a misconception that every day is roses and that there are no difficult moments, and that could not be further from the truth. There are difficult moments often, some big ones, and then there's some small day-to-day ones, right? That is a part of life. That's with parenting in general, but especially when you are a parent of a child on the spectrum, you are often hit with some unpredictable stuff on a day-to-day basis, and that can be incredibly stressful, overwhelming, and can downright put you in a state of depression, which is why I encourage parents and I coach parents on taking care of themselves first, because you are not going to be able to survive this if you don't, like, period. And I'm not going to go on that tangent, but yeah, it's not easy. There are days when it's incredibly difficult. For me, primarily, what I find the most difficult is 2 things. When my son has meltdowns, it is the most heartbreaking thing that I can watch, because you feel out of control. You don't oftentimes know what to do. It's like you're watching your child struggle and you can't fix it, right? That is probably, in my mind, and I've been through a lot, probably the most difficult thing that I could have ever experienced. And keep in mind that this is not a one-time thing. For some families, it happens often. For me, it happens on occasion. And when I say on occasion, like, I think that's relative, but Khalil's meltdowns probably happen maybe once a week. And that's not even, that's sometimes twice a week will go by. But if you are wondering the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum, because they're very different, I have a podcast for that I'm going to link. But yeah, it's incredibly hard to watch him have his meltdowns because he's in a lot of distress as a result. The second thing that's hard for me is that because his speech is delayed, I'm not able to have conversations with my son, not have conversations with him in the way that I would like, I should say. And that that's hurtful sometimes. And I say sometimes genuinely, because there are times when, because we communicate in various ways, that I don't often feel the loss, but I feel it in moments when I'm asking him about how was school and he's not able to give me a clear response, or just in general, like having mundane conversations. That's something that I find difficulty in. But I'm always, I know it sounds crazy, but I swear I'm always like a glass half full type of girl. So even in that, I'm like, his speech has increased, even in the past 2 years, so much that I feel good about one day that will happen. But also, if it doesn't, again, the way that my son chooses to communicate with me, I've embraced. I'll watch him and observe him closely so that I understand his needs and his wants. And when something is affecting him, because there are different modes and ways that human beings communicate that aren't always verbal, which I'll unpack on another episode. But yeah, that is often difficult for me, I should say, is that I'm not able to have conversations with my son in the way that I would like. This isn't a easy journey, and I'm not always fully happy and accepting of it. I definitely have days where I'm like, this is some BS. Like, I wish that we didn't have difficult moments, or that my son didn't struggle in certain areas. Like, I'm human, but because I'm a fighter and I'm knowledgeable and I've come from a place where I was an underdog, I'm real clear that you don't give up because something is difficult. And I'm clear that, like, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. I'm going to stop there because there's a lot in a lot of what I just said that can be unpacked even deeper. And I'm actually working on a series around like debunking normalcy, and it requires a lot of research. I really wanted to do this recording to set up for that series, and so I hope that this provides some clarity for you all. Until next time, have a good week. Bye.